it's a conversation we haven't had on the podcast yet. It's just like, how do you as a married couple make friends? Who's the type of friends you want to have? Who's our type of friends that maybe need to start to be loved, what Camilla calls loved from afar? Welcome to the Weaponized Marriage Podcast. I'm your host, Kendra Hewitt.
I'm Ryan Hewitt.
And today we are recapping our weekend wives meeting trip of the Chiropractic Knights of the Round Table in Charleston, South Carolina.
It's funny when I told patients that I'm going to my men's group called the Chiropractic Knights of the Round Table. They're like, "Ooh." Yeah, what are you? So you're a knight? I was like, yeah, I got knighted. I'm like, oh, were you sword fighting?
So
what were you doing?
Why don't you tell them a little bit about the group? That was my first time at the group, but why don't you tell them a little bit about it? Because that's going to segue into what we were going to talk about today.
So it's not a group. They get pissed off if I call it a group.
Okay,
so it's called a brotherhood.
I'm learning
this. Was a brotherhood that began in, I believe, the 70s, if not late 60s, by a man named Chuck Gibson. And he was one of the founders of practice management in the chiropractic profession. And he has, I think, still a management group called Gibson Management. And he started this brotherhood with the intention in mind that he would bring the best of the best in the profession in a roundtable format of men. And they would each contribute to the group, and they would meet 3 times a year. And essentially it's well beyond a networking group, right? So this is a family, and that's what the intention is. And once you're in it for life. You can get kicked out. So if you don't attend meetings, there's 3 meetings a year. 2 are men only, and one of them includes the wives. And
you have to be sponsored by a member of the group to be eligible to join it.
Yeah, so you have to be it's invite only, and then you have tryouts to see if everybody likes you and they vote on you. And if you're accepted, then you are knighted. So, and then there's a sword that's engraved, and you become knighted, and you take a pledge to the group that you won't miss meetings, that you are in it for life, and that you hold the utmost moral and professional standards to the profession, and you do not bring disgrace to chiropractic as a profession, nor the group. And so it's a membership that holds you to a very high standard as a man and as a business owner and as a husband and a leader in the profession.
And a child of God.
Yes. And it's a very, God-centered group, being, that I can't tell you exactly the history of the Knights of the Round Table, but basically, if you recall the legend of the Knights of the Round Table, all in search of the Holy Grail, and the Holy Grail is truth. And so there's a lot of significance and a lot of symbolism behind the creation of the group and the crest and the what do you call traditions in the membership. So in the brotherhood. So yeah, it's a very exclusive brotherhood that I was invited by a friend of mine, Dane, and yeah. So
it's a huge honor.
Yeah. So this was my 3rd meeting where I was to be knighted. Is it my 3rd meeting or 4th meeting? Yeah. So it was my 3rd meeting, and so last meeting they did, in fact, vote to accept me into the group, and then into the brotherhood. And I think this was my 4th meeting actually, because I did.
Oh, yeah,
it was my 4th, because there was South Dakota, there was Atlanta, and there was Oceanside, California, and then now Charleston. So, but they'd knight you during the wives meeting, so everybody is present. So all of the wives and all of the members of the brotherhood. So,
yeah, and I think one of the things that it was really, there's so many things I took away, just even how to carry it forward into our marriage. And one of the things is that I knew a few of the wives in the group. There was, I think, about 30 of them that attended this meeting. But there was also this, at first it was a little bit kind of nervous energy about being myself being accepted because they're accepting Ryan, but also it's a package deal, right? And there was a couple of things that really stood out from the weekend. And the first thing that I think that, which you kind of just went over, but at lunch the first day where it was just Ryan and I said, like, you know, can you explain to me what like the premises of the group is? Because I wanted to like have an understanding so I could communicate and, you know, talk intelligently like that. I know what we're, not so much what we're getting into, but like, what are the core fundamentals and values that they're going to focus on. And you gave me a really good explanation. But one of the things that stood out was I had met all the wives that morning and we had breakfast every morning. And I had spoken to a few. It's obviously you can't really get to know 30 people at like just a breakfast. And they were all so wonderful. And one of the things that I think really stood out to me first, which was what I said to you at lunch, which was, man, it takes a really special person and to be married to a chiropractor. And at the same time, the flip side of it is I could never imagine myself being married to anybody else that didn't have core aligned values of premises that they are super committed to, not only understanding, but communicating and also protecting. And how Ryan explained the Brotherhood is that like, it's a commitment to the chiropractic profession to continue to move it forward. And I thought that was really good how you explained that. But the reason I said the thing about this, it takes a really committed person is like, this is what like the conversation of core values really comes to mind. And it's some that we've kind of glazed on, I think, on the podcast before, but it just like really, your response really helped me feel centered in that like, hey, this isn't just a group that meets for shits and giggles, like all over the world, right? Like it's not a group just to like go like have like a wild weekend, couples weekend. There's so much more underneath it. And I had so many raw, authentic conversations with these women that I was like, you just don't get to have those on an everyday basis. And it was also a great reminder of how important that is on your to have that conversation with a marriage, because here we are talking about how you already been to this meeting 3 times. And I still haven't had an opportunity to ask you what the core fundamental like premise of the group was.
Okay. So I don't know where you're going with this. So,
I just let me finish. Okay. So, and then when you got to the knighting part, now, first of all, let's talk about the actual knighting. When they said they were going to knight you, I assumed that it was kind of like a banquet. Like, so it was like a fancy, like nice dinner and we got dressed up like we would be like dressed up going to a wedding. And I assumed that they were going to give you like this little sword that you would like put on your desk, right? Like a little, like one of those like ones you get at like a place setting, like a trophy store, right? And that we would like kind of carry it home on the airplane in like a little case. And then we get to this knighting part and it had so much, like there was so much significance behind it, which was really, really cool. And then they actually pulled out like a real legit sword. And I realized that the sword had your name on it too. And I was like, wait a minute. Maybe I thought like maybe they give you a sword that like kind of like the Stanley Cup, right? Like where it's like everybody's name's engraved on it.
No, you just said you thought they would give me a little one. I said I assumed it was like there's one commemorative sword that they knight everyone with. And then they, you know, hang it up somewhere special at Chuck's office or house or something, and then they bring it out whenever someone gets knighted. Because the knighting doesn't happen that often because it's only when there's actually a couple of guys that passed away recently, so there was openings for this Brotherhood. So I just thought it was a commemorative sword, but yeah, no, they gave me
so it was a legit sword.
Yeah.
And after they presented this with you, so after I got over the fact that I was a little bit stuck on how we're going to get this home on an airplane, and you had to say a few words. And some of the words, and it was very like what's the word? Like not on the fly, but like it wasn't like
Yes,
you
it was
didn't prepare. It was
No.
impromptu. Yeah, that's the word. And one of the things that you said that I really loved, that you talked about Jim Rohn, who is like a very well-known motivational, like he's who Tony Robbins modeled and was mentored by. You shared the concept of like you are the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And I just hadn't really thought about it until that moment. But I was like, this is a brotherhood because it is all guys, where you are getting to hang out and be around not only like-minded people, but people that are, like I said, moving your profession forward, and families that are committed to like leading and loving their families in a very specific way.
And living the chiropractic lifestyle.
In addition to living the chiropractic lifestyle. And it really got me thinking of how blessed we are that we have that opportunity. And it also, on the flip side of it, got me thinking about how a lot of couples, it's like, who do you hang out with? Like, do you hang out with the people that like you guys just get together and you go drinking every weekend? Do you go on vacation with people that literally like that's what their vacation's about? They sit on the beach and they drink and they talk about other people, or like, which that drives me bonkers. Like, I would rather be isolated than be in a group like that. And it's a conversation we haven't had on the podcast yet. It's just like, how do you as a married couple make friends? Who's the type of friends you want to have? Who's our type of friends that maybe need to start to be loved, what Camilla calls loved from afar? And we've always had couples that we have admired and we have looked up to. But that doesn't necessarily mean that we get to spend a lot of time with them. Mm-hmm. So that was what I thought we should really just kind of
so this is a way for us to ensure that we get to spend time, because there is a family meeting as well that's optional, but it's very highly, I guess, they speak very highly of it. It's where your families get to mingle, like in a loose format in the summertime. But yeah, it's like, it's a forced, what would you call it? Like, it's times where you plan ahead, and it's like, here's when we all meet. Here's when we all get together. Here's when we share ideas, and you're going to prepare for it. And everyone in the Brotherhood is pre-qualified, right? So that could be kind of like a networking group to a degree, but yeah, it's very rare that you would find an opportunity to be able to be part of something that is like going to help you raise your standard. So first of all, you have to be interested in raising your standard as a married couple in whatever it is, in your financial life, in the way you parent, in your marriage, in your relationship with God. And that's what this represents to me, is it's a way for us to make sure that we're removing ourselves from our busy day-to-day, because it's really easy to get caught up in life. When you're married and you have kids, you pretty much get locked down with like everything going on with your kids, and then making sure that you make money and show up at your job. And then whatever's left over, maybe we'll have some time to spend together as husband, wife, or like maybe take care of myself and work out. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I think it's very rare that like families have a chance to like make friendships and really carry them forward through the years. Because what I see is a lot of married couples, they just become friends with people by association. Mm-hmm.
And proximity.
Like, and it's because like, hey, our kids play on the same soccer team. Yeah. So we're together a lot. Like, hey, why don't we don't hang out? And that can work. I mean, I'm sure that there's great friendships that are created through association and through those types of like meetups. But, how many of those friendships do you have that challenge you, that talk about, you alluded to, like, are the conversations surface, and is it full of complaints and full of like current events and, talking about people, or are you talking about ideas? Are you sharing things about your life and your challenges? Are you sharing about your successes? Are you sharing, because a lot of people don't share that with friends that they don't want them to really, really know who they are. Mm-hmm. And I think there's an opportunity for you to have such a rich life if you have people that share similar values, that aren't going to judge you, that you can share like deep truths with them without, fearing that you're going to piss them off, or you're going to like distance yourself from them, or like, you're going to share something that goes against their political beliefs, for example, and like you're going to, create a rift or something like their drama, right? So like how intentional, and this isn't like a challenge or like, oh my God, your friends stink. It's just like, how intentional are you about making friendships? And, when you have those friendships, how valuable they are and how much they should be cherished. Because it is rare. It's rare that you'll have friendships that, you can have that kind of deep truth and conversation with.
Yeah. And this brings me back to even our weekend when we were with John too, is that like, we have a couple of friendships that we're on totally opposite coasts. Actually, majority of my close friendships are not local to me at all. And I just was really thinking this weekend about how like, this is an area that I feel like I need to do some growth in, because especially when you are in a marriage, like you're saying, and you have kids, add businesses, but not even add businesses, just add a career, right? You have so many things that you are responsible for. And usually friendships is like one of these things that just kind of like goes down the list. And as we're ending this going into fourth quarter, I've just really started to think is like, I'm starting to feel a little bit of like stuff of like, what kind of friends do I want to have? And it made me think about how that's probably over 15 years ago, 25 years ago, when I do remember I had one boyfriend, and that I introduced him to one of my friends, and he asked me, he's like, how do you define a friendship? Because he could tell that was not the type of friend that he saw me like hanging out with. He didn't really know how to say it. So instead of saying it like, hey, I don't think you should hang out with her, he asked me a question, and that was like, how do you define your friendships? And it made me think about like, even when it comes to marriage, is like, we are not like taught to define what marriage means to us. Like it's basically one thing that really gets designed by default until you mess it up enough that you want to change it. And same thing with our friendships is like, what are the friendships that are giving you life? What is the friendships that you both mutually share as a couple that you enjoy, that are either going to run with you or they're going to elevate you? And I think that is something that is really important and a great conversation to have.